be good.
Okay, we're live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. It's episode 87 for the second time. And now I'm actually at DefCon. So we're trying to record Security in 30 here at DefCon in my hotel before I go to the big show. And we have Tom here watching. I'm hoping he's a little jealous.
Indeed I am.
So I had the start treatment today. I flew first class. The story goes, I either had a middle seat in coach for 5 hours, and I'm not a small person, or I can pay $150 and get first class. I opted for first class. The flight was on time. I got fed. I mean, who remembers the time we got a meal on a plane? And then I landed. I got my free shuttle. I am not staying at Bally's, which I would recommend. I wish I kind of would so I can be in it. But you know what? I'm staying a mile away, and they're providing me a shuttle bus. I get free Wi-Fi, which is a big plus. I'm air-gapped, which is a big deal, so I don't have to worry about people fishing me at Bally's. And you know what? I get free breakfast, so it's save a little bit of money and have a lot of fun. So that's what I'm doing. It's Wednesday night before the show. And Tom, did you hear of LineCon? Do you know what LineCon is?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't bring up anything about it.
Okay, so I was told that I have to be. So registration, the show starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Turns out they have a whole convention surrounded waiting online. So if you want a really cool DefCon badge, which I absolutely need, I need to be online at 6 a.m. So that's going to be tough. But as somebody said, as Peter last week told me on the flight here, he said, just think, you're 3 hours earlier. It's like it's 9 a.m. You do that every day. So I said, okay, we'll go from there. So yeah, apparently there's a con for everything. They have little things that I'm just finding out and everything else. So I am just excited. So we'll go from there. Anything you wanted to add before we go?
This is all you.
Okay. So on the flight, which by the way, United Wi-Fi for the first it was a 5-hour flight. For the first 2 hours was just dreadful. I was going to tweet them. I was going to righteously be indignant about it, and then it got better, and I said, whatever, the $10. But I would recommend against the Wi-Fi. Get something else. Just disconnect. You don't need to be checking Facebook every 10 minutes or Twitter or whatever it is. But while I was searching around for stuff to do, I noticed that both Samsung and Google, through the Android Nexus program, issued a statement regarding stagefright. So stagefright is something we can't really help you solve, but if you don't know what it is, it's a text message, not a text message, an MMS. So it's within the text, it's an MMS sent to your phone that will pre-render a YouTube, I don't want to say YouTube, a video file that will then hijack your phone. And there's no way to stop it. So somebody sends you a link, just like that iOS thing a few weeks ago. It was a Unicode hijack, but this is a link to a video Google will start prefetching through Hangouts, Messenger, or whatever the default app, and it will run and hijack your phone. The difference is that you can't stop it. There's really no way to prevent this, and it affects everything gingerbread and up, so 2.3 and up. So at this point, I don't know if anybody's still running gingerbread, but it's a long time ago. So Samsung and Google both said that they're going to patch this. Google took it one step further and said they're going to have a patch, whatever, like a patch Tuesday that Microsoft has, but a monthly patch for the Nexus. And Samsung says that they're going to fix this one. So I'm going to ask Tom for his thoughts. This is a good thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Actually taking a more proactive, I should say, stance towards security and patching is great. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, Google has been typically, they've had issues in the past, but they've been typically pretty good about fixing things in AOSP, fixing security holes, getting patches out to Nexus devices. But, you know, Google is only one part of this giant Android ecosystem. You've got Google writing the main components of the software. You've got the phone manufacturers like Samsung, HTC, Motorola making builds for their particular devices. And then you have the carriers adding all their bells and whistles into that ROM and then pushing it out to the devices. And ultimately, it's the carrier who decides whether or not a device gets an update. Carriers have been typically pretty horrendous in pushing out updates. Some things will get released and then never see an update. Security updates hardly ever get pushed.
Well, I want to say... Well, go ahead. Finish your statement. I want to say security updates actually do get pushed. But go ahead.
They're starting to. It's definitely gotten better. So around the, I want to say, gingerbread days of Android, there were security holes that were just avoided completely. Well, not avoided, but the patches were completely avoided by carriers. It's getting better, but really to make this an effective strategy, they have to get all three of those moving pieces working directly in alignment with each other. Google releases a patch, Samsung then approves it and moves it on to the carriers, and the carriers push it out rapidly. I'm a little cynical that can happen, and that can happen well. I mean, Microsoft does it because they own the stack, you know, soup to nuts. They own everything. But having three big players that typically, you know, as far as carriers and manufacturers operate, they're fairly slow. Getting them to actually put out updates on time, it'll be nice if it happens.
Well, so the blogosphere, all the Apple zealots last week said, and this is why iOS is better. This never happens. This and that. It gets a patch faster, and that's true.
Happened.
Well, remember Apple gets the patch faster, yes, but because Apple signed this contract that says we control everything, and you're not going to stop us, and we're going to take the technical support. Remember, the carriers don't want you to call the 611 number and say, how do I do this? They don't want to deal with that. So they want to make sure everything is rock solid and the bugs are not there. But you're right. Before 2.3, so we're going back a few years, there was any patch, it was just non-existent. You did not see anything. And then I started noticing I did get patches. Every time there was a security bug, I had a Droid X, which was the darling phone of Verizon for a long time. The phones I've had typically have gotten security patches. Yes, they were few, they were far between, and we don't know how many bugs and real holes there are, but they were there. And then Google took Play Services within itself, and if they can push it, they will. And then you say, well, what about Samsung and everything else? I've typically noticed that they've been these minor updates. We just don't hear about it because nobody really cares that you get an update that does nothing. That was generally what it was. We care is when this phone's going to get the next dessert operating system. And typically those don't happen as much as we want them to or timely, but I saw this and I said, I told you so. I told you, everyone, that this is a big enough deal that they're going to push this through. Now, they said they're going to do it, whether it happens today or tomorrow or next week or next month or at some point. That's going to be another issue. Now, Google I/O, I don't know, 4 years ago, Google said, we want all phones, if you're going to sell a phone, we want you to jump on board the 18-month service bandwagon, which means that 18 months from when the phone was either released or when it stopped being released, which I know could be an issue, we want you to update it. And the carriers and the manufacturers basically never did. You got a phone, you didn't get anything. But slowly but surely, people are seeing these updates, and they want them. We've been saying, you know what, get a Nexus phone. Google will update them. They're pretty good phones, and now we see that that's actually true. They are updating it. Samsung is starting to. Remember, the S6 and the Note 5 had a lollipop right off the bat. Motorola barely changes anything. They get it right away. And HTC has been pretty good about it. So we're starting to see this push to actually update the phones.
They definitely are getting better. And, of course, you know, there's the option that no one really likes, but it's always been there, which is take matters into your own hands, load a custom ROM. I know I'm running Cyanogen personally. I really like it. And I'll get the updates as soon as they patch it into AOSP.
And you'll be safer for that. It's
right.
The issue are not the people that are obviously listening to the show, because they're calling Samsung, they're tweeting, they're doing whatever to say, hey, when are you going to solve this? It's the people that need a phone, that the 47%, and I don't know where I got the statistic, 47% of smartphone owners have never downloaded an app. Those are the people that are not going to get this and are going to be vulnerable. These are the people that are not buying an S6 right now. They're buying the Galaxy Y Mini 4, some no-name phone that they've never heard of because Verizon's touting it or T-Mobile's touting it as this is the cheap option. Free. Yeah. It was free. And they're not going to put Chrome on it. They're going to put their browser. They're going to leave the Samsung browser, the HTC browser, or whatever it is. And it's not going to be patched. And we're talking about the big guys. We're not talking even about the ZTE or the Huawei or the Xiaomi or the other ones that I'm sure are patching it, or Sony. We didn't talk about Sony. We're just hearing now that Nexus and Samsung, which Samsung takes 60% of the Android market, so it is the big chunk. They'll never see an update, and so I'm here to tell you, we're looking at the new phones coming out. We should actually do this on the N30 main show. The prices are going down. They've realized, Samsung is reporting an awful quarter, that they can't keep up with a $650 phone. Motorola just released two good phones, the Moto X at $400 and the Moto G, the new Moto G, which is last year's Moto X basically, for $150. So for $150, you can get into a really good phone that's going to get updated. It's the #1 selling phone for Motorola, and it's actually a large percentage of the smartphone market because it is so cheap and so good. You have the OnePlus 2, the OnePlus 1, and now the OnePlus 2 for $400. So the phone prices are coming down, and you know what? If you want a budget phone, go the Moto X route. If you can afford a little more, go. I mean, if you can find the Samsung phone for $400, go for it.
Yeah, there's a reason why the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 5 were both big sellers for at least the Google share of the Android pie. It's because they were cheap, they were functional, and they were great devices. The Nexus 6 is expensive, and I'm sure the large size didn't help very much. I know I don't want a phone that big, but the big driving thing about that drove me not to buy a Nexus 6 was simply the price. I don't want to pay $600 for a phone. $350? Yeah, sure, that's doable. But $600, man, I could go out and upgrade my computer a decent bit with that.
Well, and you can see that Google has really dropped it from everything. I mean, we don't hear very much about it at all. So if you're looking at a Nexus 6 for $400 because it's almost a year old now, I would say wait, because the Nexus 5, the new rumored Nexus 5 is coming out soon, and we'll go from there.
Right.
Basically, good things in the phone. It's good news that they're going to update it. Now, if you want the latest and greatest, always go Nexus. Google takes care of it. Obviously, we've noticed that Verizon's the last generally to upgrade. So if you're on Verizon, you know that you're paying for the service and not for very much more. Or just take everything into your own hands, like we said, and just put a custom ROM and go from there.
Yeah.
So that's really stage fright in a nutshell. You could read more about it, but there's nothing we can do. We can't tell you how to really disable it, so you might as well go from there. So next is, after the show last week, I sat and I actually made my Raspberry. I don't remember if it was before or after recording, but I got my Raspberry Pi working, my VPN, and I love it. It is great. I made more client certificates. I gave it to my wife. I put it on all the devices. You know what? I mean, I wish there was a way to mass market it. I wish I can do this. You give me your IP address, your IP address. You poke this one hole in your port forwarding, and I'll sell it to you. I don't know, $50. $50 you get You get 10 certificates. I don't know. A Raspberry Pi that you can do a little more, that you can SSH into. You can also make a media server if you want to, but for $50 you get all of this. I think that's a business.
Well, people have tried. They've tried this, one just plug it into the wall VPN solutions before. Typically, they haven't sold very well. We are seeing an expansion in the amount of people that want privacy technology or security technology, but for the most part, people don't really care. They're like, oh, well, I'll use the Wi-Fi that the hotel has or the plane has, or worst case, I'll just use my phone, or I'll pay T-Mobile for tethering, or etc.
You're right, and and you see it because it is. I don't see it necessarily a slowdown, but there is some latency hopping. I'm in Las Vegas. I am hopping all the way back to the East Coast, hop all the way back here. But you know what? I'm going to a conference I'm going tomorrow morning where that's their goal. Their goal is to try and get that. And the quinta here is the issue. Everything is open. They don't make you. There's no splash page. Which, you know what? As safe as the splash page is, it is so unreliable that the phone picks it up that I almost want it just to be open. If you listen, Jeff Jarvis always says, just let me agree to anything. I promise I won't do anything bad. Just yes, I'll do it. I promise. You can get my Mac. You can do whatever you want. Yes, I'm not going to do anything bad. But it was on the plane. It was so bad that every once in a while the Wi-Fi would cut out, and then you had to re-authenticate. Oh, it was terrible. So open Wi-Fi is bad, but having the VPN makes me feel a lot safer. And for, what did I say, $25 plus the SD card and an hour of my time?
It's definitely going to be a bit safer. Of course, open Wi-Fi at all, even through a VPN, there are going to be risks. It's not a bulletproof solution. So I don't want to sell it as, the magic armor that protects you from all hacking everywhere. But VPNing over open VP or open Wi-Fi, it helps. It definitely helps.
You're right. It definitely helps. And yes, look, I told everyone I use it for being at school. They block a lot of sites probably for the right reasons. But you know what? I don't want them knowing my traffic. They're not blocking it. So while they're not blocking it, I rather get yelled at later for creating the VPN, and rather than getting yelled at that they saw me on Amazon looking up whatever for my students and saying, well, we don't know why you're on Amazon, or seeing that I'm on Twitter a little too long during the day. So
right, better to just avoid the question.
Yeah, and so I've been having a lot of fun with it. I just can't get it on the Chromebook. The Chromebook does not make it easy, and OpenVPN I guess that's a standard, but they have their own standard software. So they're on every platform, but I wish I could just import the certificate and have Google or the iOS or Chrome or wherever just magically pick it up. And I'm sure I can do it, but it's difficult.
It's starting to get there. I love OpenVPN. By far, it is the best VPN solution I've ever used. But yeah, I agree. People need to, system owners, system creators, need to really look at their VPN options. While you're throwing stuff in, while you're throwing in AnyConnect or IPsec or point-to-point tunneling protocol or all these other things, VPN or OpenVPN is a really easy thing to just throw in there, call it done, and give it the same API calls you've already got. So it's. I don't know why it's not on more platforms. It's starting to get there. It's starting to break in, but it takes a little bit.
I think there's one VPN company. There's a VPN company. For me, it's Simplex Solutions, but there's all hide my rear end, hide my ass, or hide this, or bear something. I think they use the same underlying protocol, and they sell the VPN access to basically MVNOs. So you could just start your own VPN company. and I think that's what they're doing. And they bought this app, and like I got the VPN before this Raspberry Pi for $20 for 3 years. I didn't go too far into it. Are they stealing the data? Are they doing this? Because like I said, all I'm doing is going on, making sure the school doesn't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So, I mean, other than that, so we have the VPN going. We have this. I don't have anything else for now, only because, hey, the show starts tomorrow, and I'm sure we're going to find out a lot of information tomorrow. We're hearing stuff from BlackHat still coming in. Where Chrysler issued a patch for their self-drive for the cars that are remote driving. I don't want to say self-driving. Stagefright is being patched. So we're going to hear a lot more tomorrow about what's going on.
Yeah, there are a lot of good patches happening, and I'm sure tomorrow we'll hear about some great hacks.
So after we talked about the USB condom, I went out and I bought 2 USB condoms. I figure I'll use one, and if I'm standing next to someone, it's a good conversation starter. Here you go. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, it actually adds another feature. They found a way to speed up the charging process. So it takes you from like 1 amp to 1.5 amps, which is actually kind of cool. It was just for me, it's an unneeded feature, but you know what? That's if it helps, because nobody really puts quick chargers or 2.1 amp chargers everywhere. They put their 1 amp or 1.5 amp thing, and this will take it slightly higher. And you know what? Charging a little faster is always a good thing.
That's nice.
So I got nothing else.
Out of curiosity, how much were those? Because they're not expensive, are they?
Well, one of them was $7.99. The second one on the thing turned into $15.99. I just typed in USB condom, and this came up. And they tout the first feature as speeding up your charge. But if you dig down, it says it takes out the data syncing pin. And you can choose. You can buy a data syncing you can buy a non-data cable, just a charging cable. And we've all done that where we're using a charging cable to try and do something with our phone and it doesn't work, and you're banging your head, and then you realize it's the wrong cable.
I did that a couple weeks ago. I was pretty embarrassed when I figured it out.
Well, the problem is that the good part is only you and I know. It's not like it's a big sign that's what you were doing. But
yeah, it's not like this is on a podcast across the internet, across the planet Earth, or anything.
Well, look, everyone has done it, so we've all done it, and we will all continue doing it because we have hundreds of USB cables around, and no one wants to look on the side or count the number of wires. But they also have you could buy the wire. The problem is I have no place to stick it, so I'd much rather the adapter, and it's bright red. I mean, so you're
not going to walk away without it.
So I mean, I may lose it, but you're not gonna. You're gonna know that you're, I guess, protected, and you're hoping. I'm looking, and I only see 2 pins, so it looks good. So.
Yep.
I don't have anything else. If you don't have anything else, I say we wrap it up, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we'll see you guys next week or whenever we can next. Bye.
See you guys.